Before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Europe operated on a foundation of cheap Russian energy. This was not a secret arrangement, it was a decades-long policy, especially for industrial powerhouses like Germany. The logic seemed simple and sound at the time. Russia had vast reserves of natural gas. Europe needed that gas to heat homes, power factories, and generate electricity. Pipelines like Nord Stream 1 were not just conduits of fuel, they were seen as bridges of economic interdependence. This interdependence, many leaders believed, would ensure peace and stability on the continent. The belief was that nations tied together by commerce would be less likely to engage in conflict. This reliance was deeply embedded in the continent's economic structure. Germany, the engine of the European Union, sourced over half of its natural gas from Russia. Italy, another major industrial economy, was similarly dependent. For these nations, Russian gas was the lifeblood of their manufacturing sectors. It allowed German cars to roll off assembly lines and Italian ceramics to be fired in kilns at competitive prices. The entire economic model was predicated on this steady, affordable flow. Warnings about the geopolitical risks of such a heavy reliance on a single authoritarian supplier were often dismissed as alarmist or outdated Cold War thinking. The economic benefits were immediate and tangible, while the risks seemed distant and abstract. The arrangement created a sense of complacency. European governments and corporations invested billions in infrastructure designed to receive Russian gas. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline, a project completed but never certified, stands as a monumental symbol of this strategy. It was a testament to the idea that business could be separated from politics. The system worked until suddenly it did not. The economic fallout from cutting off Russian gas was swift and severe. Germany was hit the hardest. Its entire industrial model was thrown into crisis. For decades, German manufacturing thrived on cheap energy. Suddenly, that advantage vanished. Factories faced soaring energy bills, forcing some to curtail production or to shut down entirely. BASF made deep cuts at its Ludwigshafen plant, a site that once used as much gas as all of Switzerland. The shockwave rippled through the economy, fueling fears of deindustrialization. Germany, Europe's economic anchor, found itself weakened. Italy faced the same dilemma. Textile industry strain, ceramics industry strain, automotive industry strain. Small and medium businesses were hit hardest. Many couldn't absorb costs or invest in alternatives. The government spent billions on subsidies for households and businesses, giving temporary relief, but squeezing public finances. Central and Eastern Europe, tied to Russian pipelines, also suffered. Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic. Finding new suppliers was a logistical and financial nightmare. While Central and Eastern Europe grappled with an existential energy crisis, some countries on the continent's periphery remained remarkably insulated. Spain and Portugal were chief among them. Their geographic location on the Iberian Peninsula, separated from the main European gas grid by the Pyrenees Mountains, had historically been a disadvantage. It meant they were not connected to the vast network of Russian pipelines. However, this isolation became a sudden and unexpected strength. Both nations had long invested in infrastructure to import liquefied natural gas from a diverse range of suppliers, including the United States, Nigeria, Qatar. They had the largest LNG regasification capacity in all of Europe. This strategic foresight paid off handsomely. Germany and Italy were scrambling to build new LNG terminals, while Spain and Portugal already had them in place. This allowed them to continue receiving gas at prices that, while elevated by the global market turmoil, were far more stable than the astronomical rates seen elsewhere in Europe. Their energy security was never seriously threatened. In fact, they were able to pivot and become net exporters of energy, sending electricity and some gas northward to help their struggling neighbors, particularly France. The crisis turned their geographic and infrastructural isolation from a liability into a major strategic asset. The United Kingdom also avoided the direct impact of the Russian gas cutoff. Although the UK is a major gas consumer, it had historically sourced very little of its supply directly from Russia. Its primary sources were its own North Sea production, along with significant imports from Norway. Similarly, smaller nations on the European periphery, such as Albania and Kosovo, felt little direct impact. The energy crisis has done more than just raise heating bills. It has triggered a slow-motion unraveling of Europe's industrial competitiveness. The United States has been a major beneficiary of this shift. Europe faced sky-high natural gas prices, while American industry had cheap domestic shale gas. That created a massive cost gap. Manufacturing suddenly became far cheaper in the US, chemicals, steel, fertilizers, and cheaper in the US than in Germany, Italy. The competitive playing field tilted dramatically. This disparity is driving deindustrialization across Europe. Companies are rerouting investments because of energy realities. European giants are shifting future factories to the United States. They're building in America to use lower energy costs and generous subsidies like the Inflation Reduction Act, Texas, Louisiana. Each new U.S. plant in Texas or Louisiana is a plant not built in the Ruhr Valley or Lombardy. This is a long-term relocation of capacity, jobs, and know-how. Industrial production and advanced research are intertwined. As manufacturing relocates, innovation follows. The ecosystem of skilled engineers, researchers, specialized suppliers that sustains industry begins to erode. Europe risks falling behind in traditional manufacturing and in future tech like green hydrogen, advanced batteries, next-generation materials. This trend is also reflected in human capital. The US is a magnet for global talent, and Europe's crisis has amplified that pull. A growing number of Europe's brightest scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs are migrating to America. As Europe desperately sought to replace Russian gas, new winners emerged from the geopolitical reshuffle. Norway stepped into the void. Norway became Europe's single largest, most reliable gas supplier. Across the Atlantic, American energy companies reaped enormous rewards. The U.S. shale revolution had already made America a major exporter. The war supercharged it. A fleet of LNG tankers began constant transatlantic journeys, delivering to Germany, delivering to France, delivering to the Netherlands. Another surprising beneficiary has been China, though indirectly. As Europe stopped buying Russian gas, Moscow had to find new customers. China became the most important alternative. Russia sold gas and oil to China at a significant discount. Chinese industries gained a major energy cost advantage. The war redrew the global energy map, creating a new hierarchy of winners and losers.